Welcome to Artificial Intelligence in the Church. My name is Brian Honsberger. I am the Diocesan Director of Mission and Technology Integration. And in our little video today, we're going to talk about these things: the theology of tech, the safety of artificial intelligence with an expert, Bartosz Luczynski, the 7 patterns of AI, and then finally, we're going to talk about how artificial intelligence could be used in a ministerial context in the church. So we're thinking about DREs and parishes. We're thinking about youth ministers and even pastors. How can you use AI to build up your ministry, to build up your parish? So first, we're going to talk about the theology of tech and how it connects to artificial intelligence. So if you've been watching the Paul Street Journal, a podcast that we host, we shared that it's actually Pope Leo XIII who is the earliest born person ever in the history of humanity to be recorded on video. It was the Catholic Church and some of the popes who have specifically utilized technology for evangelization. So we have this quote from Pope Pius XII during World War I, and he compares the good and bad uses of radio in his time. Radio was built for and primarily used for war, but he repurposes the technology for the sake of evangelization. And we see in the picture, he's giving a blessing to the entire world over the microphone of the radio, which is pretty cool. So is the church Amish? Are we anti-tech? No, but we're also not arbitrarily for tech and for all things novel. I think we as Catholics should be rather neutral on technology. How can we use it for the good, and we don't have to support it all the time in every context? So the question is what role does artificial intelligence play in Catholicism? And we have a special expert here today to help us answer some of these questions. So Bart is a good friend of mine. He is a PhD in computer science. He currently either has or is applying for 5 patents in artificial intelligence. And very importantly, he's also a graduate of our certificate in Catholic evangelization. It's a graduate level master's program that combines theology, evangelization, and he's a graduate of that. So we can trust him theologically as well. So welcome, Bart, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So, Bart, is artificial intelligence something that we should be using in the church, or is it something that we should be avoiding because it's going to destroy us all?
So artificial intelligence is just a tool. So the answer is it depends on how you use the tool. It's morally neutral. It could be used for good. It could be used for evil.
All right. And how about the singularity? Is it coming, and is our computers going to replace us all, take away our jobs?
We're very, very far away from that. I mean, these systems are actually a lot simpler than they look. The results they produce are very sophisticated and impressive because they do it so quickly. And it looks like these technologies are maybe, self-conscious, but we do not have that as a thing. So we do not have artificial general intelligence, which is a machine thinking by itself, designing by itself, taking actions by itself. We're a very long way away from that. Somebody has to build the AI, and then somebody has to specify that purpose and then use that purpose for something.
Understood. So for the next 10 years, let's say, is it safe to say that artificial intelligence is going to be a tool that could assist us in our work rather than be something that replaces us?
Yes. So I would nuance that a little bit. So in certain tasks might go away entirely, like you no longer need to do that. But as a result, you'll get a set of other tasks. So instead of doing something very tedious repetitively 100 times, you might just be asking an AI to say, hey, automate this process for me. I don't want to do this 100 times. Here are the steps. Please, write me a short little program that does this automatically for me. So you're not doing the manual task, you're asking your AI assistant to do the task for you.
So does this mean I won't have to grade 200 graduate pages worth of writing every semester?
You may or may not. I don't know if I would be comfortable with. Part of learning is about the personal touch and the personal interaction. I think you would lose that. Could you use it as a tool? Hey, AI, look at these papers and give me a rough idea of what I'm looking at. And then say, all right, well, I agree with the AI's analysis on this question, but it's missing, these 3 points. And I think, the student is showing great growth. The AI probably would not have that context, whereas you, as a personal professor of that student, would have that context.
Okay, so I can still use the spell check.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So this slide here is simply to show that AI is in an infancy stage in many ways. Is that true? Is that fair to say?
I would disagree with that.
Oh, yeah?
AI has been around for a very long time, right? We have AI to play chess and so on and so forth. It's just that, we're currently experiencing a blip on the radar, right? We have particular technologies, generative AI, generating images, and large language models having conversations with us that are very trendy and very impressive, and they're kind of grabbing the limelight. But AI has been a part of our existence for quite some time now, right?
All right. So as artificial intelligence continues to develop, this slide is simply meant to display that we could be influencers of how it develops as Catholics, or we could let other people, non-Catholics, non-Christians, influence the creation of these models and techniques, and then we could just become victims. So being a part of it, I think we would both agree is an okay thing.
Yes, of course.
All right. So Bart and I now are going to go through the different applications of AI. We're going to call these the 7 patterns of AI, as Cognilytica says. So we're going to start with recognition at the purple box at the top and then move around. All right. So recognition, I'd like you to talk just briefly about how you built an artificial intelligence program long ago, years ago, that recognized different types of boats on the Hudson River.
Right. So I guess to give some context, so these are just like 7 buckets where AI can be applied. This is what AI can help you with, what area, but they're just arbitrary categories, right? Mm-hmm. So the actual underlying algorithm, what you're trying to accomplish, might overlap with some of these. There might be several algorithms that accomplishes that task, right? In my particular case, my PhD work was in the field of computer vision, and that focuses on how computers actually see what we as humans see and how it processes that information. So yes, my PhD work was, we have a bunch of high-end cameras pointing at the Hudson River, and we're just monitoring river traffic. We want to recognize what boats are there, what they're doing, and are they supposed to be there? Again, this is going to the quote by the Pope. It's a military type technology, but obviously recognition can be used for other purposes, right? If you have pictures on your phone, you could use that, say, hey, I want to find all the pictures of my pet, of my cat, right? And you could search all your photos. You don't have to go, manually click through every single photo. AI can recognize, hey, this is what your cat looks like. Let me return all the pictures with your cat.
I'm sure Joe uses this all the time. I do. Okay. All right. Thanks for that. And next would be conversation-human interaction. The first thing that comes to mind is Siri or Alexa.
Yes. So, and again, there's a bunch of interesting problems that are actually being solved underneath the hood, right? So you're taking human speech, you're recognizing what those words are, you're converting it into text, and then you're potentially using that text to ask either a chatbot or something else, return some results for you, right? So there's several different pieces that are being already used there from the AI space. And it winds up being a useful tool, right? Like you have a personal assistant that you could talk to, and they're going to give you feedback based on whatever question you're asking it.
All right, great. The next would be predictive analytics and decisions. And the first thing that comes to mind in my head is something that you've been working on in regards to predicting the interaction of different chemical elements.
Right. So the company I work for, we make consumer goods products. We make toothpaste and soap and so on and so forth. And as you might imagine, if you're a big company, you're making these products, you want to make sure that these products are safe and that they're effective. And if it's a soap, you expect a particular viscosity, so on and so forth. And normally the way you do all these things is you actually wind up taking that product, mixing it up, putting it in a tube or a box and running all sorts of tests on it, which takes time, is expensive. And it would be very nice if you could just type in your ingredients into some sort of AI system, and it would tell you, hey, based off all the data that we have of all the soaps that we've ever made, it looks the closest to this one. So we expect that it's going to be very similar in the test results to this one. And it kind of gives you an early warning system. Hey, we think this soap is going to be too liquid or it's not going to foam, and so on and so forth.
So this could really reduce the cost of R&D.
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. Goal-driven systems. Any ideas?
So this largely has to do probably with games. I mean, we already used the example earlier of chess. You have a goal of winning a chess game. You could train an AI to win that chess game. But there are other more practical goals in the day-to-day, right? In general, parallel parking is not the most comfortable thing for a person. But for an AI, the goal is, hey, move this car between these two cars or whatever other obstacles are in the way. And that goal is automated by AI, makes it very easy for you to parallel by a car by just pressing a button. Or, Tesla with self-driving cars. I don't have to worry about driving.
Well, that's what's next, right? Good segue. So we're going to talk about autonomous systems. What better example is that than the self-driving car?
Right. And again, the point here is a lot of these things are already present. You're already using them. So, if we're worrying about, as the church, should we be worrying about tech and using tech? A lot of these buckets you're already exposed to in some sort of way, and you're using them.
Mm-hmm. Patterns and anomalies.
Again, AI is very good at crunching lots of numbers and finding whether it fits a particular pattern or something doesn't fit a particular pattern. So my work for my PhD did recognition. It was recognizing boats, but it was also monitoring patterns. Mm-hmm. Hey, is this ferry in what we normally see a ferry do? If so, we're not going to flag it as an anomaly. But if it's doing some sort of weird behavior in the Hudson, we're going to flag it as an anomaly and alert somebody, right? A more common example is probably your credit card transactions, right? You're swiping some purchases. All of a sudden, there's a charge for $1,000 at 3 a.m. in some foreign country. Mm-hmm. That's going to get flagged as an anomaly because it doesn't fit your normal purchasing pattern, and it's going to alert your bank, and hopefully your bank alerts you as a result.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of cybersecurity companies that use similar patterns for detecting threats and so forth. All right, and then the last is hyper-personalization. The first thing that comes to mind is the suggested watch list on Netflix or something like that.
Of course, yes. So, or streaming radio is another good example, right? I'm going to start a station with a song I like, and then it's going to recommend other songs that are very similar to it, and then you slowly grow your preference, hyper-personalized station to you. So this happens all the time. It has a kind of a unpleasant effect as well. You wind up getting spammed with ads for things you may actually want or not want. But there's the creepiness aspect to it when you're searching for something and all of a sudden you get tons of ads for something related to that. And you're like, oh, somebody was watching what I was searching for. Hold on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not all good all the time.
Right.
Right. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is, the last thing I'd like to ask you about is, do you have any recommendations to ministers in the church for utilizing AI to better their evangelization efforts and their ministry?
Sure. There's plenty of opportunities with AI. It depends on, obviously, the task that you're trying to accomplish. The generative aspect of creating images, obviously, if you want to create a logo or some sort of picture, very easy to do with generative AI. And again, it's a tool, and you're in control of the tool. So if you ask the tool to generate some sort of image, you're not happy with it, you could iterate over it, and it's up to your discretion. Hey, is this image actually appropriate, right? So Google's Gemini fiasco is a very good example of that, right? People asked it for pictures of popes, and it was giving female popes, right? We as Catholics hopefully would know there's no such thing, right? But Google had a particular bias in its tool, right? It was trying to make it more diverse and inclusive, so it was making everyone female and of different colors as opposed to what would be historically accurate, right? So again, be responsible with the use of a tool, but it is just a tool, so feel free to use it. We discussed earlier in the podcast that you could treat AI as an assistant. So certainly feel free to use it for any sort of research work. Hey, I'm not familiar with this particular aspect of what I'm supposed to be doing. Let's ask the AI, and the AI will give you a roadmap. Now, again, you have to be careful with the results. You should verify them. So if it tells you something that you think may not be true, you should definitely look up those sources. Now, the best AIs will actually tell you where it's pulling the information from. So you could actually click those links or go to those resources and actually look at the highlighted text of where it pulled the information from. And then you kind of get your bibliography immediately. So again, as an academic resource, it's a great resource because you could just ask the AI chatbot, hey, I want to know St. Augustine's thoughts on virtue. And it will give you a pretty good summary. And from that summary, now you could deep dive into the particular works. It will at least give you lots of good starting points, right? Here's some things he wrote. Here's some books, encyclicals, whatever, right?
Yeah, it's a good place to find sources, but it's not a source in itself.
Right.
That's the way I would say it. Yeah. Okay.
And I agree with that analysis.
Yeah. What else?
So unfortunately, the way that the language models are currently built, they're kind of sourced from just the internet, and you don't know if that information is being curated correctly, right? So Google has a particular bias. OpenAI has a particular bias. They will include or not include certain source of information. Now, are we in the business as the church of actually building our own large language models? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a possibility, right? So it's something that we should probably explore. Like if you want to actually have something that is very vetted to what the Catholic faith is, that is something that we would want to have some capable engineers put their efforts against, right? Now, that's not even necessarily a problem with maybe Google or OpenAI, right? So we have the Catholic faith as opposed to the Protestant faith, as opposed to all these different faiths, all the different sects that have varying different views on our faith. And I'm kind of curious how all of that winds up being, meshed up in this AI model that was generically trained across all of these. You might be asking your model a Catholic question, or at least your intent might be to ask it a Catholic question, but you wind up getting some sort of generic Christian answer that might not be in line with the Catholic faith. So I think there's the room for being safe and responsible with AI in that regard, and also for the church to actually curate official models that are trained on vetted Catholic sources. Now, of course, there's a problem in there as well, because certain things, as we have greater revelation in our faith and greater understanding, our beliefs change or get nuanced in certain topics, right? So if we look at some really old, it might be accurate for, St. Augustine's time, but we might have a greater understanding, in modern day. So
I understand. All right. Now, when it comes to anything else, do you have any other suggestions for ministers, certain tools in AI for practical application in their ministry?
So specifically for tools, I mean, if you want to use some of the tools I already mentioned, Google's Gemini or OpenAI, you certainly can. I think what's going to wind up happening, this is a prediction, instead of having someone like Google index your search results and kind of be the gatekeeper of the search results, you could just have the AI be the search result as you were. So you don't really need to go to Google and Google is the gatekeeper. The AI bot will return the results for you. I think that is massively decentralizing the search aspect of it. And the good news is you don't need to be connected to the internet. You could just ask your chatbot directly. But as a practical tool, most browsers probably will wind up integrating your first level search result being the AI generated one. So Brave browser already does that. They use their large language model called Leo. And your first search result will give you a nice AI generated response that it thinks is what you wanted. It will also say this was generated by AI, and here's the sources that it wound up using when generating that response. And then you will see the actual search results that the search engine provides. I imagine Microsoft and Google will shortly follow suit, but it's a very low barrier way of just interacting with the AI. Hey, all I'm doing is I'm typing in my search the same way I would normally type it into Google, but I'm getting AI response.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When it comes to generative AI in the realm of art and creating pieces of art that had not been created before, how is this AI model? Say you want the AI model to create a piece of art in the style of Michelangelo. What is it that this AI model is doing?
So this goes to what the AI model is actually trained of. So if it was actually trained on the concept, like it was fed a bunch of Michelangelo paintings, it would be able to recognize, hey, all these paintings were flagged as Michelangelo style. I know what Michelangelo's style is. I can replicate it based off the ones that I have used in my training data set as Michelangelo style. This goes back to that question of, can AI really do something creative? Can it think on its own? Can it come up with a new concept? And the answer is no. It might, at least not currently. So it might generate results that look like they're brand new, but they're more, you just weren't expecting it as a result, right? And in general, the image generation still has a long ways to go. One of the common problems that AI can't seem to grasp as a concept is how many fingers to draw on a hand. So you will wind up getting like 6 or 7 or less than what a human has. So again, AI is just currently taking guesses. It's probability-based guesses. Hey, they asked me for Michelangelo. I know what Michelangelo looks like. I'm just guessing this is what they wanted.
Right. So, my issue with things like that is it's taking things that exist and making something that doesn't exist, but in the style, it could be considered as stealing from certain artists. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, and that's,
well, there's a whole legal side
to
artificial intelligence, which has not worked out yet. There are a couple of companies that are hedging their bets in that regard. So we're starting to get sources now, which wasn't the case originally. But in regards to music rights, visual rights, battles are yet to come.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. Obviously, the church is against stealing.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I think I think a lot of artists might be worried that, like AI is going to replace me. Like it can create better art than I can quicker and so on and so forth. And I don't think that's true. I think artists, if you have your own unique style, first of all, AI is not going to know that style until we use it as training data for the AI. So that's one. And you would have to become kind of a prominent artist in order for that to happen, right? So if as an artist, you produce consistent style and consistent art, that's tons of value because you can do it consistently, whereas with AI cannot. The other thing is for an artist, I think this is, again, like an assistant or a useful tool for you. You could ask it for a sketch or a bunch of sketches, look at what the AI produced, and it's like, oh, hey, I kind of like this aspect, what it did in this try. I liked another aspect, what it did in another try. It gets you like your brainstorming done first, and then you could actually do your own sketch or your own take on it in your own style. So I wouldn't view it as stealing necessarily, obviously. But if you're stealing Van Gogh or whoever, this is for my own entertainment, you're not stealing, you're just generating an image. But if you're going to pass it off or try to make money off of it, that's where I would say the legality of it comes in.
Thank you, Bart. Thanks for watching so far. For the next part on practical application and ministry use cases, click on the link in the description below so that you can register. Thanks for watching.